Welcome to SEPSA Talk. I am Evans Apia Kisi, the host of SEPSA Talk. SEPSA is Center for Better Society Advocacy and Research Africa. SEPSA Africa is a non-profit organization that believes in a better society for all. We in SEPSA Africa believe that a better society begins with you and I. Hashtag, a better society begins with me. For more information, please log on to www.sepsaafrica.org. Please follow us on the various social media platforms: YouTube, SEPSA Talk, Facebook at SEPSA Africa, Instagram, SEPSA Africa, and Twitter at SEPSA Africa. Like always, today we bring you another interesting discussion on our series of Interrogating the Manifestos, a focus on trade and industry. And don't go away, stay with us as we bring you our guest who will deal with these issues. Political election manifestos are public declarations of policies and aims of political parties wanting to rule a nation. Given that a manifesto is a social contract that plays a key role in modern democracy and development, we put available manifestos in their place going into election 2020 of Ghana. It is important to note that the discussion is not to pitch one manifesto against the other in terms of superiority, but to look at how the promises address the desired level of development we require as a society. By so doing, we are able to highlight the gaps in these manifestos for a better society. And in this episode of SEPSA Talk, we focus on trade and industrialization. And to help us deal with this issue are Ms. Harriet Akwa. She's a former field engineer at Baker Hughes Ghana Limited, now Baker Hughes GE Company. She's also a former senior mechanical engineer at Amek Foster Wheeler. And she's currently an entrepreneur in real estates in Ghana. She holds BSc in mechanical engineering from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Ghana. She also holds certificates in women entrepreneurship and leadership for Africa Program, Ghana and China. I must say it's a pleasure to host you, Engineer Harriet Akwa. Welcome to SEPSA Talk.
Thank you.
Great. And our next guest, who is obviously not new, is Mr. Lord Edusei Akins. He's currently a doctoral researcher at University of London School of Oriental and African Studies. His research focuses in international development policy and biosecurity. He has Master of Science from Stockholm University, Sweden, Master of Science from Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, Sweden, and he holds Bachelor of Science from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Ghana. It's always a pleasure to host you. Welcome once again to SEPSA Talk, Mr. Lord Edusei.
It's great to have you on the show. I'm glad to join my colleague, Harriet Akwa, for this important discussion. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And let me also say that we are streaming live on Facebook at SEPSA Africa, and also AK Mensah is sharing it on his wall together with others who would be doing that. To our fellow SEPSarians, we would like to apologize that we were not able to start on time due to certain technical issues, but I'm sure you bear with us, and together we would have a very fruitful discussion. So let me welcome you once again, lady and gentlemen, to SEPSA Talk.
Thank you, Evans.
Thank you.
So we'll start right away, and I also need to issue a disclaimer here. Today, fortunately or unfortunately, we focus on only two of the manifestos, that is that of the MPP and that of the NDC. I guess we decided to do away with that of the independent candidate's manifesto because he's been disqualified. That was very, very unfortunate. And we hope that he would be able to, deal with it and also deal with it better in future. So engineer would be dealing with the MPP's manifesto, and Lord would look at the NDC's manifesto as we interrogate their promises on trade and industrialization. How do they intend to move the country forward as far as trade and industrialization is concerned? And mind you, they do not represent nor speak for these political parties. It's an intellectual discussion that we are having in order to help move Ghana forward. Thank you. So I'll start right away with you, Engineer Harriet. Usually we always start with the MPP's own simply because they launched their manifesto, earlier before the NDCs. And let's look at this. I mean, if you look at trade and industrialization, how do you see the structure? Can you give a summary of the structure of the manifesto, particularly with regards to policies of trade and industrialization? Which areas of trade and industrialization do you feel that the MPP's manifesto indeed touched on? And which areas do you feel they did not touch on? Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for having me on this program, Evans. And it's a pleasure to share the same platform with my honorable colleague here, Mr. Lloyd Eduse. It's wonderful to share this platform with you, sir. And I'd like to say good afternoon, good morning, good evening to all the listeners, wherever you are. I don't know the time that you find, the time zone that you find yourself, but I greet you all. I am upon going through the MPP manifesto. It's actually quite interesting with their structure. If you look at the whole of the MPP manifesto, they have the promises that were made. Well, they are the government, the party in power, so they, I believe, can write more on what they've been able to do this past 4 years. And I think that's what they did in their manifesto. They wrote down the promises that were made and what has been done so far with respect to the various sectors of the economy and what they plan to do if given the mandate to rule for the next 4 years. And that also presupposes that for the trade and industry, that will also follow the same structure. And looking at how they tabularized the promises and the what they've done under the promises that were made under trade and industry, it looks quite easy on the eyes, I mean, with how they went about it. But I must say that it is actually quite extensive. And after that, they also listed the projects that have been done or still under construction or ongoing under the one district, one factory policy, which actually is quite, has been quite trumpeted over the past 4 years. So I'll just delve in a little bit as to what they touched on, the areas they touched on in terms of industry. But before I go into that, I want us to bear in mind when it comes to industry, there are classifications of industry, right? And under industry, we have the agri, we have the manufacturing, and we have the services. Okay, and looking at what has been done, the policies, what they touched on, basically they touched on internal and external trade. They also spoke about tariffs, they spoke about data, and data is something that has been a topic in this country for quite a while now when it comes to getting data to do or to have certain plans and certain policies. They touched on that. They also talked about funding, foreign direct investment, entrepreneurship and innovation. They also touched on that. They also touched on the SMEs, strategic anchor industries, which for them, they focus on as the growth poles for moving the sector, that's the industry and the economy forward. They also touch on skill development and of course, the one district, one factory. Now, looking at how they went about it, obviously it was to paint a picture of the foundation that they have done and what they plan to build on that foundation moving forward if they are given the mandates to go for the next 4 years, right? So, looking at the trade policies, what were really the things that were touched on, and what they really intended to do when it comes to the trade industry. Now, for the trade policies, they touched on briefly on the traditional export, but most importantly, they focus on the non-traditional export products. And for Ghana, over the years, our traditional export product has been cocoa, right? So it has actually got a lot of attention. I mean, government in, government out. We've been hearing on cocoa, the policies on cocoa, how to grow the cocoa industry and all that. But this time around, they actually focused on what they'll do with the non-traditional products as well. So they had a restructuring of policies to focus on how to boost the non-traditional products. Now, also under trade, they also spoke about the import competing basic foods. Now, there has been a concern over the years of declining sufficiency of rates in basic foods, whereas it means that we are importing a lot of foods that we consume, and that affects our import bills, and that affects also the farmers in the local community, the poor farmers and their economic status as well. So the policies that they put together to sort of address this issue was the policy that's under the Ministry of Agriculture, that's the Planting for Food and Jobs, and also collaborating that with the One District, One Factory that is under the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Industry. That collaboration was to boost agriculture and also boost the processing of our agricultural products, right? So that we can meet the basic needs in Ghana. So for instance, products like rice, poultry, dairy products, all those things are areas of interest. And if you look at the list of the One District, One Factory that they put together, a lot of these factories actually focus on these areas as well. So we can be more self-sufficient in the country. And that is another area they touched on. And also on the trade policy, there's a challenge of aligning your regional policies with the national policies. You know, it's actually a huge challenge. So in tackling that, what is stipulated in their manifesto is that they set up a Ghana International Trade Commission that will sort of iron out issues when it comes to the trade issues between Ghana and other countries in the ECOWAS sub-region and also internationally. So talking about unfair trade issues or custom valuation issues, all those things were things that they touched on or they tried to address through that policy and through that commission. Now, when it comes to industry, over the past 10 to 15 years, what we find with industry is that services has grown at the expense of manufacturing and agriculture. So what I see from the MPP's manifesto is that a lot of focus was given to the agriculture sector and the manufacturing sector. Now let's look at some of the challenges, then maybe we'll also appreciate the policies that were put in place to handle that. Now, first of all, we have utility prices, which affect industry, it affects manufacturing, and all that. Also excessive taxes and levies, lack of funding, and high interest rates affect doing business in Ghana. And in general, lack of government commitment to the manufacturing sector. Now, in combating or in trying to solve these challenges, what the government of MPP did in their manifesto as stipulated is to make business more attractive by reducing the cost of doing business in the country. So how did they go about that? They mentioned reducing lending rates, reducing energy costs, reducing import costs, abolishing some taxes, and developing a database of their labor market, because you want to know who are your skilled labor, where are they really, and how they can easily be assessed by different industries, and how they can also be more visible, right, to these industries. So these are some of the areas that MPP touched on in terms of tackling the challenges that faces, or that the trade industry faces, as well as the industry that the manufacturing and agriculture also face.
Thank you very much, Engineer Harriet, and that's a brilliant submission out there. So basically, in terms of the structuring of the MPP's manifesto on trade and industry, you say that at least when you look at industry, they did touch on the three levels, which is the agriculture, manufacturing, and services. And I had a follow-up question, but I think you already answered that the focus is more on the agric and the manufacturing, because we know over the years, services has been able to, surpass these two other. But in terms of the trade policies, do you find any policies that, in a way that excites these two industries that they focus more? I mean, the agricultural sector and the manufacturing sector. Are there any trade policies that you feel would help to, boost these two sectors, or this is something which is also missing in the MPP's manifesto?
What I'll say is that looking at their policy on boosting, what do you call it, the internal trade. For instance, I didn't touch on the internal trade. Internal trade, they're talking about building, what do you call it, markets. Some have been completed and some are still under construction. So that also helps with internal trade as well. Now, will these go a long way in helping? Yes, it does. But my focus actually was on the part of the import of products, right? Once you're able to boost and have a self-sufficient industry, or self-sufficient, we are able to take care of our basic needs. I think that goes a long way to be able to grow enough crops, process them enough for your local market, and be able to even export to your neighboring countries. We are just even looking at the ECOWAS sub-region. I think that's a very good policy that they looked at.
All right, thank you very much. And also one thing which you highlighted, which I think is also of interest, is their focus on the non-traditional exports, not just only on cocoa, which has received all the attention over the years. But definitely we'll come back to you to ask of questions around relevance of these wonderful promises that are stipulated in the MPP's manifesto. So I come to you, Lord. What do you also say about the structuring of the NDC's manifesto as far as trade and industrialization?
Thank you once again for having me and for joining my colleague, Harriet. I think she's made a very valuable contribution, helping us to understand where MPP stands in terms of trade and industry. If you also look at the NDC's manifesto, it has also several issues regarding trade and industry. Chapter 6, I will call it Chapter 6, because the NDCs, they've itemized their manifesto in terms of subjects. And on subject number 6, which is the trade and industry, they have identified several things that they would like to do. As a matter of fact, they want to focus on some 16 items that they think are pro-growth related areas. That is areas that will help Ghana to actually grow, expand, and also bring employment to the youth. I must also add that the NDC's trade and industry policy that they want to implement if they happen to be elected has as key component generation of jobs. So the NDC, as part of this generation of jobs plan, they intend to revitalize all the industries that they think can help Ghana to grow and to help people to be employed. They intend to focus on textile and manufacturing. So if you look at textile, they've identified that Akosombo Textile and Japan Textile are very important companies. But over the years, the strength of these companies or the strength of the textile industry has weakened over the years. So one of the key strategies of the NDC is to revive this textile industry so as to make sure that they contribute in generating the employment that the NDC intends to generate within the economy. The NDC's manifesto also has, as part of it, plan to promote a nightlife economy. What they mean by a nightlife economy? It's an economy whereby there will be 24-hour economy, whereby from day to night, activities will continue. There are cities around the world like London or New York where people don't sleep at all. That is the plan NDC have in mind. They want to have an economy in Accra, in Kumasi, and all the other big cities where nightlife will continue. And that will mean that some of the industries must run 24 hours. So they intend to have a shift system within the industrial build-up. For instance, if you're looking at Akosombo Textile, rather than Akosombo Textile running, say, a one shift, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m., they intend to have a 24-hour shift so that it can be broken down into 3 stages, 8 to maybe 2 to 8, and then 8 p.m. to, so that is what is called the night economy that the NDC is talking about. The NDC also intends to look at producing hygiene materials for our ladies in Ghana. They've identified hygiene, female hygiene material or female hygiene products as critical in moving Ghana's economy forward. So that is also one area that the NDC intends to focus when it is elected. As I said, they also want to look at insurance, finance, and all the other service sectors. But we can break it down into 3 key components. They want to look at agriculture. So in terms of agriculture, they intend to build, with the help of the private sector, they intend to focus on agro-processing. The NDC identifies the agriculture as the key or the backbone of Ghana's economy. And because of that, their trade and industry policy on agriculture is to move from just raw material production into processing and then for export or for local consumption, feeding local industries. So what they want to do with the agriculture sector, for instance, is that rather than producing, say, cocoa, cash crops, and exporting it, they intend to refine or add value to 50% of this cocoa product before it is either used for local for the local industries or exported. So they want to process 50% of, say, cocoa, what to me is a very laudable idea. But as the devil always, they say, is in the detail. 50% is what they intend to do. They also intend to encourage the setting up of what they call gold board. The gold board is in the mineral sector. So they intend to revitalize the mineral industry by also making sure that Ghanaians are into the mineral industry, especially in the small scale area. And then they intend to train Ghanaians to be able to acquire the necessary skills, the resources, especially when it comes to acquiring machines for these gold mining activities. So agriculture or the agro industry is in their mind. Secondly, they also have the mineral sector also in their mind. And at the same time, they also have the manufacturing sector. And within the manufacturing, they are talking about car assembly, for instance, assembling cars, and other light industrial activities. The NDC intends to focus seriously on these areas because they believe that it has the capacity or the ability to generate the 1 million jobs that they want to. And the NDC is also making some good statements within their manifesto. According to them, they want to establish a 10 billion big push. What do you call the big push? Which is an idea for me. It's a sort of funds that could be spent in several key industrial areas. For them, according to the NDC, with that 10 billion, they will be able to build the necessary roads and railways that can help with the movement of goods and services within the country. So that 10 billion for me is a laudable idea, but the devil is always, they say, it's in the details. The NDC also would like to have what they call the Agro-Processing and Manufacturing Fund. They want to set up a fund. And this fund will be geared towards the agro-processing industry and then also for the manufacturing. All this are what the NDC intends to do to put Ghana on a sound footing. For me, that is a good idea. But after going through the NDC's manifesto, the question I have always been asking myself is how? Because they've said a whole lot of things in the manifesto. They want to build the Eastern Corridor so that goods could be moved, manufacturing and industrial activities could go on within the Eastern Corridor. They're also talking about the Western Corridor, the same way, goods and services production, But the question is how, which is whether they have the capacity to do all those things that they've listed. As a matter of fact, they've listed 16 areas that they think, if they focus, will help Ghana to move forward. And within these 16 areas, I have identified 4 to be within the trade and industry, because some of them fall within the financial and insurance sector. But critically, 4 of them are within the trade and industrial activities. And for me, if they are able to do that, it will actually help Ghana to move forward. But the question, how are they going to be able to achieve it? They like to take advantage. They like to take advantage of the Ghana Africa Free Trade, the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. The NDC has it as part of its strategy to promote Ghana's industrial development. They want to take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade. And as we may know, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement covers the African continent. And according to this agreement, goods and services can easily move within the African continent or the African sub-region. For me, it is very good for a political party to identify the African Continental Free Trade Agreement as an area that can be used to promote Ghana in terms of trade and industry. However, there's little explanation as to how. When I say there's little explanation, I'm talking about the NDC manifesto. There's little explanation as to how they are going to marry their policies with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. There's little connection. They should have been able to say, okay, because African Free Trade, the agreement is here, we think that this area, because the African Free Trade Agreement is a broad document.
Yeah.
So they should be able to identify which part of the document will help Ghana to industrialize. But the NDC manifesto is very silent on that. Though they have identified the free trade agreement as a very good area that can help Ghana, they have failed to link the Ghanaian economy to the free trade agreement. Secondly, the NDC, as part of its industrial push, would like to have inland industries, inland port build-up across the country. When I look at that one, it is a good idea, but the ability to implement these ideas when compared to previous manifestos is that is where the challenge is.
We maybe not, sorry, but not to cut you in. I guess in the second round where we look at feasibility, whether, I think that's the big question that you keep on asking, that they have very nice promises, but the question is how. I guess when we get to the second round, we'll be able to deal with that. And I'm sure definitely there are one or two. This is where viewers want to know, okay, which promises you feel that is feasible. I mean, whether there is the political will and also there are enough funds to be able to do that. But then thank you very much. So pretty much similar to what engineer also said, when you look at the NDC's manifesto, the promises to some extent also touches on, I would say, all the three levels of industry, as engineer explained. I mean, you looked at agric, manufacturing, and you talked about mining, and of course you also talked about services, which is pretty much similar. And you say that indeed it touches on these levels, and one of the main focus is to actively, promote made in Ghana goods, where you mentioned their intention of the Akosomo Textiles Limited, something that they really want to look at. So thank you very much. But before we even get to the second round, let me start with you again, engineer. If you look at the promises that you mentioned, I feel you already started the discussion around the relevance of these promises, but maybe just to make it more explicit to our viewers and people following us, the promises that you touched on, how relevant are they? Which of them do you feel indeed, addresses our industrial and trade problems, particularly the industrialization bit, which we are all yearning for? Which of these promises do you feel address that?
Okay, Evans, looking at the manifesto, there are about 20 promises and what they've done under those. As I said, it's quite extensive. If I should go through all of them, you may have to add 2 more hours to it. But I just picked out a few of them that really stood out to me. And I think that they are really good initiatives. As I said before, they have the foundation. Since to them, if they are re-elected into power on December 7th, that will be a continuation of their governance. So I think that's how they see that kind of fluidity with their policies as well as what they intend to do. So I always have to go back to what they've done and then build on from there. So with the first example, I'll talk about what the promises of boosting the SMEs, looking at startups. So as one of their policies, it was about National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Plan to support startup and young businesses. And through that policy, they've been able to create 19,000 or over 19,000 businesses, startups, which for me, that looks very remarkable. And there's also another policy of merging or linking small and medium scale enterprises with the large scale enterprises. And that for me is a fusion, or if this is really executed very well, you see a fusion of two policies here. Now, if you have created 19,000 startups and then give them a platform to link to the large enterprise, the large scale enterprises, what does it mean for the small and medium scale enterprises? Now, that could mean a healthy competition, right? Because all of you want to get the attention of the large scale enterprises to offer your services or offer your products to them. So that leads to healthy competition. And what does healthy competition do? It will also lead to what? Innovation. That is something that I really found very interesting. Now, innovation will lead to what? Improved services and improved products. And what does that also lead to? Expansion, all for what? The small and medium enterprises. And when there's expansion, what happens? Employment, right? You are able to employ more people. So looking at this initiative, these two initiatives, I mean, I think it's a very good one. And if done very well, we will have a very robust small, medium enterprises. I mean, we'll have that economy building up, and we will have a very robust industry with these two policies merging together. Another one that's caught my attention is the development of a database for the labor market. As I mentioned before, data is something that we don't really do well in this country. So to be able to gather data that will help you design policies in terms of the labor market, that is something that is very welcome. And under this policy, what they've been able to do is to get a data for the skilled labor, the apprentices, the artisans, right? They've been able to capture that. And also they can also capture the people who need training, right, in various industries, right? So to get that kind of skilled labor going on. And I think it's a very good initiative. As I said, data is something that we really need in this industry, in this country. So what it means is that you are becoming more visible because anybody can go into that database and get, whatever it is they are looking for in their local government or in their local district. Whatever skilled labor you're looking for, they are quite visible because they're in the database. And also they have the National Recruitment Agency. So it is easy to find out where jobs are available, and also companies can go into the database to assess the kind of skills that they need in their companies and in their industries. So that is a very, very laudable idea. There's also a web-based product gallery site, right, for the small and medium scale enterprises. And this to help them showcase their products on the internet. So you can see that they are moving a little bit from the traditional way of marketing, where you have to use billboards, you have to use a radio and television, all that. Right now they are making use of the internet. And this actually widens the scope, or widens the market for the small and medium enterprises, both locally and internationally. And this actually brings to mind the very similar model that was done in China by the Alibaba company. It's actually called Taobao. So Taobao was done for the small and medium enterprises in China, and it has actually helped to alleviate poverty in rural areas in China. And if this is done and executed very well, I believe that it would be a great tool for alleviating poverty in our rural areas, and also to help boost the business of these small and medium enterprises. And also, this also will lead to a very good competition as well, a very healthy competition, because all of you have your products on the internet. So you're looking at competition in terms of prices and competition in terms of what quality of product. And that is something that is very, very welcome. And as I said, you've done well. Hey, kudos. It's going to really help these small and medium enterprises. Another thing that also caught my attention is their focus on what they call the strategic anchor industry. And they listed 6 of them, the first being the industrial starch. Now, industrial starch is a product that has so many users, right? It has so many users. But before I even go into that, what they intend to do with the strategic anchor industries is it's supposed to serve as a kind of driving pole for the economy. So that is what they are looking at. Now, industrial starch is used in many things. Encapsulation is used in the pharmaceutical industry and all that, right? It's used in emulsifiers. So that's a very important product. And under the one district, one factory, some companies are already into the starch, and I understand some are also under construction, almost close to completion, to be able to execute this. Also, they look at sugar. Now, sugar is a very important commodity in the everyday household in Ghana, right? But also in industry, it is also a very important commodity. You use it in the food processing industries, they use in the beverage industries and all those kind of industries. So they want to also focus on production of sugar and processing of sugar. And the goal for this MPP government is to be able to produce or to be able to meet half of the demand of sugar in Ghana in the next 4 years. So this also links to what we talked about in terms of the import competing basic foods. Once you are able to get, you are able to have a self-sufficiency, you be able to reduce your import bills and all that to do with these products that we normally import into the country. Now, the third focus for them also is the pharmaceutical industry. And as I mentioned before, even the industrial starch feeds into the pharmaceutical industry. So there's some kind of a self-sustaining system that they want to create over here. And looking at the pharmaceutical industry, I know that Ghana imports lots of drugs from India and other countries. Now, if we are able to boost our pharmaceutical industry, what we tend to do is to be self-sufficient and also be able to export our products in the ECOWAS sub-region or across Africa. And that also helps with our foreign exchange, right? So that is, I think, where they are looking at. And another industry that they are also looking at is the aluminum industry, processing the bauxite into its finished product. Over the years, we had Valco that processed the alumina into aluminum. Now they want to have the whole value chain, right from bauxite to the finished product being the aluminium. So they've started a process of having what they call the Ghana Integrated Aluminium Development Corporation. So in the next 4 years, what they plan to do is to finalize that and to start the production, the whole value chain from bauxite to aluminium. And this is very good for Ghana because we use aluminium in a lot of things, our cooking pans and all those kind of things, and also for real estate, right? Have aluminium, roofing sheets, and all those kind of things, right? It's going to boost, especially for the affordable housing, be able to produce some of the products for these in Ghana to make affordable housing more of a reality, right? Also, they look at the other industry, that's the steel and iron industry. And they are also establishing a sort of a corporation for it. They call it the Ghana Integrated Iron and Steel Development Corporation. And they plan to complete that in the next 4 years if given the mandate. And this as well is very, very important, especially for housing in Ghana. Housing has become a very important part of it because we have a very huge deficit of over 1 million houses. So if you are able to have these products produced in our country, then it will be easier for the government of the day to produce these housing units for those who need housing, and they can also afford as well. So that is one area of focus for and sorry, just a last one. Let me add that one quickly.
Okay.
Their focus for the strategic anchor as well is the automotive industry. And as we already know, we have the VW, that's a Volkswagen already in the country. They have the assembly plant here, and our own Kantanka. And we also have the Sinotrack doing the heavy equipment and all those kind of things. And they want to bring in other companies. Apparently, they are on their way. Toyota, Nissan, Isuzu, Renault, and all those companies to set up industry. And that is really going to boost our industry here in Ghana because we can supply also to the sub-regions, the countries in the ECOWAS sub-region. And that would be a very good boost for our economy here. There are other things I wanted to say, but looks like I'm running out of time.
Exactly.
With this one, but there are so many positives with this very policy and this focus that whatever government that is in power, if they should focus on this part, is going to bring us a lot of goodwill and a lot of positives for us here in Ghana.
Great. Thank you very much, Engineer Harriet. That's very comprehensive. So by and large, when you look at relevance, I mean, when you look at the MPP's promises on trade and industry, whether it's something that, you know, addresses the need of the society, you sum it up, you know, by looking at about 3 or 4 of them: the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Plan, the linking small scale and medium scale enterprises to the large scale, and of course the development of the database, just to touch on these 3. And you say that if these things are done well, which we would come to in the second round, what your take is, whether you feel this could be done, whether this could be achieved or not. But if these things are indeed done well, then it's going to boost our economy and employ a lot of people. I think the basic thing was the employment thing. And I like what you said about the healthy competition, you know, leading to innovation, leading to improved services, leading to improved product, and then expansion, and then eventually we would be able to have employment. So these promises indeed look good on paper, but we'll come to the very final round where we would hear from you, especially your own favorite promises, whether you feel these things could be achieved or not. Thank you very much on that. So I come to you, Lord, also when you look at the NDC's manifesto, you know, having said that they also indeed covered important levels of trade and industry, you in fact already started the discussion already as far as relevance is concerned, but if you could make it more explicit, how relevant are these promises? How do you think they are able to address, you know, the need, the industrial and trade need of our economy and our society at large?
Well, when I look at NDC's manifesto, I can see that they still have in mind a Ghanaian economy that is focused on producing basic things. That is what they have in mind. And at this time, do we still have to focus on basic things? Or do we have to move forward into, say, heavy industries? Ghana's economy has remained almost the same since independence. It is still what they call the Gaggisberg economy, heavily focused on the production of raw materials and for exporting these raw materials. Service sector is heavily dominated by small pieces of trade and little production here and there. This is not good for a 21st century country, a 21st century country whereby competition with others is very keen. So for me, when I look at NDC's document, I don't know if they want to focus on import substitution, industrial development, or they want to focus on export promotion industrial strategy. Because if you want to focus on import substitution, then you must know what you need. At this time, they think that the things that Ghana need are the basic things: food, shelter, clothing. But if we are to survive as a country, a boxer going to a boxing ring need to assess its capacity to defeat its opponent. Ghana's opponent is not Ghanaians. We live in a competitive world where countries are building the infrastructure capacity of their countries, educating their students so that they can become one of the best in the world, investing in IT, investing in satellite technology, investing in nanotechnology, investing in different industrial capacities so that you can actually project yourself into. Currently, Ghana, the NDC is talking about a third generation industrial development. That is what their document is telling us. Third generation industrial development. Meanwhile, countries have moved from a third generation to fourth generation, and now we are in the fifth industrial revolution. So if we are still focusing on the third stage of industrial revolution, then we are not going to go anywhere. But that is what I see from the NDC. They want to produce basic things: food, apparel, shoes, pharmaceutical, not even advanced pharmaceutical machineries like ventilators, advanced ones. We are not focusing on that. They are still at the basic level. And for a country like Ghana, having independence in 1957, still thinking about basic things, it doesn't meet my expectation. But that is what they want to achieve. They want to focus on agriculture. We know Ghana's economy is heavily dependent on agriculture, but must we continue to depend on agriculture? Countries that focus on other sectors have just about 1% of the population in agriculture. If you come to United Kingdom, or you go to US, or you go to Japan, just 1% of their population is into agriculture. Right now, we have about 40 to 50% of our population heavily dependent on agriculture. We need to move away from that, but the NDC's document is not looking at anything like that. It's still the document still is focused on agro-processing. Yes, agro-processing is important, but do we still have to dwell on agro-processing at this stage of our national development? No, I think that we should jump from the current agro-processing focus to heavy industrial development, which is where every country that aspires to be great in this world always focus. Heavy industrial development, machinery. How many caterpillars are we importing to the country? Why can't we focus resources on that and then set up Ghanaian industries that can produce caterpillars? If you go to the mining communities, all the machinery that these miners are using are from China. So why don't, if we need these machines to mine our minerals, why are we not setting up industries to produce these machines, which is what I call the heavy industry? If we want to focus on just processing the agro processing industry, yes, this is very good, but it's not the type of country that we should be, the type of economy that we should be aiming at. They want pharmaceuticals, as my honorable friend Harriet Akwa made mention of the NPP manifesto. The same thing the NDC is saying here about pharmaceuticals. Yes, but what kind of pharmaceuticals are we talking about? What are our health needs? What are the things that we need? How many Ghanaians die of, say, HIV/AIDS? So that if we want to solve it, then we need what we call retroviral drugs, generic ones. Then they want to set up retroviral genetic or what they call generic drug production in Ghana, which is for me very good. But how many Ghanaians are HIV positive or have HIV/AIDS in the country? We very few. So if it's very few, then the focus of producing generic drugs in Ghana is neither here nor there, unless probably you want to produce for export. But if you look at West Africa sub-region or the entire Africa sub-region, very, very, the areas where we have the need for generic drugs is in the SADC region, which is South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Zimbabwe, because that is where the HIV/AIDS epidemic is focused. But these countries have their own. South Africa, for instance, has industry producing this material. So why are we trying to focus on areas where others have already focused their industrial capacity on? So I think that we need to move away from this area, but that is where NDC would like to do. They also want to talk about health tourism. Health tourism in Ghana. Look at the filth in our cities. You can't talk about health tourism when you have cities choked with filth here and there. How many people will be interested in coming to Ghana for health tourism reasons? Because we haven't built the infrastructure. So if you are going to encourage people from US, Europe, Asia to come to Ghana for health tourism, you need to tell them a lot of things. You need to show them that these are the facilities that we have, but we haven't built that. So the NDC manifesto on health tourism is just, for me, it can be achieved, but it holds very little water. Light manufacturing, that is also another area. Light manufacturing, they want to produce clothes. Yes, we need clothes, but what kind of a country are we aspiring to be? Are we aspiring to be a South Korea in West Africa, or a Singapore in West Africa, or a Taiwan in West Africa? What kind of a country are we aspiring to be? Because if you are focusing on just what do you call light manufacturing, you are just producing calluses, hose. These are light manufacturing items or equipment, few basic equipment that can be used for agricultural purposes. We must move away from that. Go to, say, the northern region. We have large tract of land over there. People don't have tractors to turn this land into usable agricultural land. They don't have the tractors. So if we are talking about basic manufacturing, then it means we are not even thinking about transforming our economy into a semi-industrial economy, let alone an industrial economy. We need heavy machines. Bring in the tractors. So the NDC manifesto must focus on building heavy machineries. That is what we need. When we are building houses, about a week or so ago, a whole building collapsed. The whole building that was under construction collapsed. The question is, what kind of engineering is going into that? And what kind of machineries are they using in putting about these buildings? NDC seem to be focusing on light manufacturing, which to me is good for them, but not good for Ghana, because Ghana has to move away from the basic. These are the basic things that every country that wants to grow will do. Light industries, yes, but we need to move from light industries to heavy industries, steel, iron and steel, because no country can develop without iron and steel industry. No country. If you want to build a heavy automobile industry, like the Germans have done. You need steel and industry, but how many steel and industry activities is this manifesto talking about? It is talking about very, very few, which to me is inadequate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lord Eduse. Very interesting perspective out there. But I mean, I have a follow-up question, maybe just to summarize it in your own words. In terms of relevance, I think you feel that the NDC's manifesto, pretty much to some extent also bringing in some elements of the NPP's manifesto, you feel it does not really address, the trade and industrial need of the country. And you keep on saying that it's too basic. I mean, so two questions. Yes, as a country, these are the things we need. We need these basic things. We need food. We need shelter. We need, and so if a party is wanting to rule, and these are the things that it seek to, achieve, what is wrong with it? That's one. And then you also talk about the fact that, yeah, we should probably be looking at, jumping into heavy industry. But I guess we have to start from somewhere. If they want to focus on agro processing, is that not the first stage? Is that not the first step to achieving that? I know there are different economic models, like the Rostos model. I know some have argued that you necessarily do not have to follow these stages, which I don't want us to maybe go into it. But what is wrong? Is it that easy? You think it's that easy that we could easily jump from where we are to heavy manufacturing? Shouldn't the focus be starting from, providing these basic needs and then adding on until we get to where these industrial countries are?
Thank you for the follow-up question. The point is this: we have been at this stage for so many years. We have been at this stage for so many years. And so the question is, how long can we continue to remain at this level? For how long? Look at countries that have industrialized, how long it took them to transit from light industrial development to heavy industrial development. It took some of them just 10 years, even some 5 years. But how long since independence? We have been at this very level for several decades. And it has to do with the kind of document that we prepare. So if the NDC has prepared this document, then it means in the next 10 or 20 years, we don't have even a plan to transit. We still want to produce the basic things that we need. Yes, food, shelter, clothing are the important things that every human being needs. But for a country to actually survive in the international system, full of competition, full of aggressive economic policies, you can't just be doing this. Because if you do that, then see, Ghana's economy is not bigger than 60 billion. 60 billion, that is Ghana's economy.
60 billion US dollars, right?
60 billion US dollars. South Korea's economy is $1.5 trillion. So if you are focusing on the basics, then it means you can only export basic material that will fetch you very little. You can also export basic things that will only fetch you few money that you can further use to transform your economy. That is why there should be plans that we must transit. And the transit must be, it shouldn't be an abrupt transit, but it should be gradual. But right now, what we see, there is no attempt to transit. What the MPP government did with this company, VW, they are only coming to do assembling. They are coming to do assembling. Assembling cars doesn't involve production. Therefore, the knowledge capacity of building a car will still be in Germany. We are only going to assemble them. So for Ghana to actually develop, we should be the ones producing the cars, not just assembling them. We should be the ones. So and they can make noise about, yes, we are assembling cars. Who is designing the cars? Who is designing the engines? Who is designing all the important parts? Where are the parts coming from? Are we the ones building them? If we are not the ones building them, then we are only adding to what somebody else has done. And therefore, the benefits that we are going to have from that industrial activity is going to be limited. So for me, we have Katanka company in Ghana. What kind of support are we giving them? So that, see, Dawood, a company like Dawood or a company like Samsung, they have heavy, Samsung doesn't only produce phones. They produce industrial washing machines. They produce industrial kitchen equipment. These are the things that bring in money.
All right.
Not just processing food.
All right. Sorry that I have to cut you in because of our time. I probably will plead with our producers to give me 5 more minutes to add to it. So, Lord, you know what? When we come back to the second round, I would change my question to you. I would rather ask you, how do we achieve the jump? You know, I know you've already mentioned some, you know, bringing in the Katanga example and what you expect to be done rather, you know, by whoever wins power to be able to move our country to an industrial one. If you are joining us, well, I've been alerted that we could add 15 minutes. Okay, that's great. Thank you. So if you are joining us, you are live on SEPSA Talk. Today we are discussing, those of you who've been following us, our fellow SEPSarians, our series of Interrogating the Manifesto. Today we are focusing on trade and industry. And my guest has been Engineer Harriet Aqua and Mr. Lord Edusei. So Harriet has been interrogating the MPP's manifesto to see how these promises address trade and industrial need, while Lord is also focusing on that of the NDCs. And still, I need to say that they do not represent or speak for these political parties. It's an intellectual discussion that we are having in order to help move Ghana forward. So, Harriet, I guess listening to Lord, I'm sure this was a very quite a divergent view out there, you know. Yeah, I wouldn't say he's been emotional, but I know Lord is speaking to the fact he's always championed the Asian, the tiger miracle that later on, I'm sure you would have a way of putting it properly than I have done. But if we look at the MPP's manifesto, as you rightly pointed out, that there's some bit of relevance. I mean, I know you looked more at the entrepreneurship and innovation, and particularly focusing more on the small and medium enterprises. That remains key because majority of Ghanaians are found in this enterprise. What's your take on whether these things are feasible, particularly about the 4 very important promises that you touched on? Do you feel this can be done? Do you feel that if they should win power again, do you feel they can do it? Do you think they have the political will, and also there are enough funds to be able to execute those wonderful promises?
Before I go ahead, Evans, it was just, I really enjoyed listening to Mr. Lord. I must say, because a lot of the things that he's saying is true, and I agree with him, because Ghana is almost 70 years. There are some kind of discussions that we have to stop making, and there are some kind of discussions that we have to start making. If we are to rub shoulders with the high and mighty in the universe or in this world, the big countries, the Chinas, the US, the Germanys, and all that, there are some things that we actually start to look at, right? And having this Africa trade and all that also helps, that means that we really have to pay attention to our local production. And we need to move away from subsistence to actually going industrial. And that is a good way of looking at development and pushing our country forward. So much of what Mr. Lord said, I totally agree with him. He also mentioned the pharmaceutical. Which part of the pharmaceutical? What are we really going to produce? These are pertinent questions that we need to ask. And so I congratulate his passion. You cannot talk about your country without being passionate about it, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so I appreciate that a lot. With your question, is it feasible? As I said before, these are things that they have started, right? These are things that they have started and they want to build on it. Mine is that it has to be executed well, right? These things have to be executed well. If it is, or if they do so, then of course we're going to see a lot of benefit, in our economy and in our industry. I mean, when it comes to the issue of unemployment has been an issue for decades, right? So to have a database, for me, my excitement was with the database. I mean, having the data is so important. That helps you to plan your policies. That really helps you to plan your policies, and that's a step in the right direction that the MPP government took. And also, you mentioned the iron and steel, the role of the iron and steel in our economy and in our industry, as Mr. Lord said. I mean, this is, should I put it that this is our transition we should be looking at? I think so, right? Yeah. Because we need to look at where we are and where we can get to. So for the first time, I believe, in our history as a country, we are really looking at really producing not just raw materials, but producing semi-finished or finished goods, adding value to what we produce. And that actually is a very good discussion, a very good discussion that we are having actually on these issues. Are these feasible? I think they are very feasible. It is time for us to wake up as a country. It is time for us to maximize the potential of the raw materials that we have, because over the years, as I mentioned, Valco has been importing alumina and producing its aluminum sheets. Meanwhile, you have bauxite in your country. So which of the two was not feasible? We dealt with something that was not feasible for decades, imported alumina. Now we can produce right from what bauxite to alumina, then alumina to aluminum products. So as I said, if we are to do this and do it right, I believe that it's going to serve us a lot. And looking at what they are also looking to do in the next 4 years, I mean, Mr. Lord touched on the light manufacturing. And that is something that the MPP manifesto also made mention of. So in their light manufacturing, what they are thinking about is building of assemblies, components, small components, not only for the manufacturing, not only for the automotive industry, but also for household products, which I think we are moving away from, the normal machetes and stuff like that. We are actually adding more to our economy and more products that we can produce locally. And of course, if we are having the steel and all those kind of things that we are going to produce in Ghana, then these things too is very, very feasible for us to do. Is that not so? And they're also thinking about processing cocoa, more of the cocoa and shea butter. I think that is something they've also been talking for quite a while now, that we need to process more of our cocoa, enough of just exporting the beans. We need to add value to our cocoa so that we can get more of a foreign exchange. And one thing that they also focused on was with our energy. You know, having a sustainable power supply to this industry, because that is what our industry depend on, right? And so being able to ensure stable energy supply, stable power supply, so that that can boost your industry is something that we really need to look at. And they mentioned that in their manifesto as well. They also talked about gas infrastructure for the bauxite and all that. So all in all, I think it's coherent with what they want to achieve, you know, with all these things that in terms of bauxite, in terms of steel, and all these industries they are looking at. I think the things that they are looking at, I mean, is quite feasible. Yeah.
Thank you.
We just pray that they execute them very well.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Engineer Harriet Aqua. So yes, basically, and I would tie this with also the NDC's manifesto, because I would change the question, which would also be the concluding remark from all of you. So to summarize what Engineer is saying, indeed, if we want to, or if these political parties want to, you know, execute these promises, they are indeed achievable. They are not something that is skyrocketing or something that you need, you know, you need to go to space before you be able to do it. But I like one thing that she said, which is also usually some of the things said by A.K. Mensah, the CEO of SEPSA. Her hope is that if it must be done, it must be done well. Maybe just to borrow downward insurance company, as they always say. And so, and also, not just it must be done well, it also must be done with some, you know, level of speed. You know, it must be done now and done well, like A.K. Mensah would always say. So thank you very much, Engineer Harriet. And so let's see this. This would be the concluding remark, but for Lord, I would probably give you 5 minutes, because now I want to see your recommendations or suggestions as to, you know, how to achieve the jump, you know, which we all agree. Harriet said we should move away from this subsistence way of doing things. You know, if we want to compete with the world, we can't remain where we are. We should stop discussing, you know, old things and, you know, focus more on the new things. So what would be your recommendations? What suggestions would you give to policymakers in order to achieve, you know, an economy that looks more industrialized than what we have now? So I give you 5 minutes, and then I come to you also, Harriet, for your concluding remark on the same question, but for you 2 minutes.
Thank you. What I want us to, all of us, understand is that no country has ever industrialized by depending only on foreign capital. No country has ever industrialized by depending only on foreign capital and for ignoring local capital. And for if Ghana actually we want to industrialize, then we need to aggressively tap local capital. If you look at Ghana, there are people who have 1 million, let me go into the old local currency, 1 million, 10 million, 5 million, scattered here and there. How do we mobilize them to become a large pool of money to be used for investment? How many Ghanaians do have savings accounts? For Ghana to actually industrialize, even if we are to go by the NDC manifesto, produce light industries, light manufacturing items, we still need capital. Therefore, we need to mobilize the money that is within Ghana, get it to the people who are really interested in investment. If you go to Ghana right now, Katanka is very interested in not only producing automobile, they want to diversify. Why are we not giving this man and his group of engineers a lot of support so that they can transform whatever they have? We keep importing. See, if you go to Ghana, all the things that we use, go to the bathrooms, we import everything from abroad. There are people in Ghana who have the engineering know-how to transform some of these things. There was this small boy, JSS student, who produced a car. We don't know how he did it, but he managed to move it. So these are the things that the state, see, VW as a car manufacturing company was revived by the German government after the Second World War. All the people who were approached to invest in VW said no, it wasn't a viable company. But then they were able to convince some few investors, and they said we will try it. And VW became the sought-after company in the world in the 1950s and 60s when they started producing this, what they call the Beetle. We have Katanka in Ghana producing cars. Why isn't the state mobilizing the necessary capital investment and backing this man so that we can capture the entire West Africa car market? Because West Africa car market is very huge. Nigeria alone has a population of over 250 million. If we can produce small cars just like the Beetle that were produced in Germany, that became so common and every man could afford, we can transform Ghana within a decade. We have the resources already, as my colleague said. We have the bauxite, we have the aluminium, the ore, we have it. What is needed is the political will. So when I hear the politicians talking about we want to process agro-food and all that, what are we doing with our bauxite? What are we doing with aluminium, the ore that we have? What are we doing with all these industrial raw materials that we have? That is where the political will is needed. For now, John Mahama doesn't, but per their manifesto, the political will to transit Ghana from the production of basic capital products to advanced capital products. The political will is not there. Do we really want to solve unemployment problem in Ghana? No country has ever done that by focusing only on agriculture. We need to produce what is called manufactured items, including cars. See, motorcycles, bicycles. These are the things that move countries forward, because then you employ hundreds of people. But the government must be a coordinator, identify people who have the financial capacity and also people who have the engineering and technical know-how. The government should be at the center to coordinate all this, just as Japan did it, just as Taiwan did it, just as South Korea did it, just as even the United States of America did it. The United States government had to be the coordinator and channeling rail production, rail construction here, port construction here, and then able to bring resources from different locations and then turning United States into one of the most advanced economies within in less than 100 years. We should be able to do that, but the political will is what is needed. From political will, then we can have every other problem could be solved if we have political will. But do we have political will? We don't have it because the politicians are still thinking about basic things. We can transit from the production of small manufacturing product, or what they call light materials, to advanced ones. But we need a government to be the coordinator, see where the money is, encourage people to put their money in the bank, encourage the bank to also mobilize the money and then channel it into Katanka, channel it into people who want to produce machines for, see, if you go to Ghana, many Ghanaian homes, cooking items are not there. Many homes do not have oven. Many homes do not have boilers. These are the things that we need, because this is the things that make countries grow, things that make countries industrialize, things that make countries to develop. Otherwise, if we are still thinking about processing cassava and whatever, then we are still going to be found at the bottom of the global league. When I'm talking about Ghana, I want to talk about Ghana that can be counted among the top 20 countries in the world. Currently, we are not even among the top 77.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Mr. Lord.
Evans, can I add something to what Mr. Lord said? It's very interesting. With respect to Kantanka, I've always been very passionate about that because I always said that you wouldn't go to China and see the president sitting in another car aside a car produced by Chinese people. And so for us in Ghana, we need to promote our own, and that what we have is Kantanka. And recently, I was very happy to hear, actually, it was right from the horse's own mouth, the CEO of Kantanka himself, that the government has even made certain orders from him. I think there's a new policy of trying to utilize our own automotive industry here, so that importing cars, they would rather order from these companies here. And I believe we can also fact check. I believe that Kantanka is also enjoying certain incentives to be able to build his company. But of course, we need to move more. We need to actually push this man forward, so that at the end of the day, I mean, it would be beautiful as a Ghanaian to travel to Nigeria or to travel to South Africa and see a Kantanka car there. It's your national pride, you know. So it's a good start with the incentives and all that he's enjoying. The government has also ordered some cars from him. That is what I want to hear. I'm also looking for the day that the president will have a kind of the beast. The American have the beast. We will also have our version of the beast that the president sits in during national, ceremonies and stuff like that. Moving forward, I think under the one district, one factory policy, if you look at a lot of the companies are actually agro-processing companies. But I also realize as well that some are also branching into other areas. Some are into production of light poles and stuff like that. So all these, some are also into some industrial wares. So it's a new thing, but I think as time goes on, then we'll see its impact really in the economy. I'm just saying these things to buttress what Mr. Lord is saying, that we don't have to focus on only agricultural products, but we have to look at other machinery, what supports even our agricultural sector. We need to look at tractors and all those things that they need in having a mechanized farming system, for instance. We should be able to provide it here in Ghana. So by and large, we've started. And I am happy that I think in a long time, we are discussing these things because we haven't really had a platform to discuss policies like these when it comes to where we want to move. We had these talks in our homes, in our own story, but right now we are bringing it to the fore. True. And it's actually a good way, and it's a step in the right direction. That means that there is something happening. There's a new wind blowing, and we need to keep our ears open and our eyes on the ground to see where we can take this to. So when it comes to the 1D, 1F, of course, it also has to do, it's a collaboration between the government and the private sector. So the question is, for the private people, what is it that they want to do? You know, we can also have discussions around that. Maybe I'm just speculating here, it's not a fact, but maybe it's just because we've not really taken much advantage of our agricultural products, and we want to be in the, what do you call it? We want to now see how we can transition these raw materials into finished products. But of course, we have to look at other areas as well. And I believe some people have been looking at that and operating their companies under the one district, one factory. And I believe that as time goes on, more people will see the essence of having the other supporting. I know of the tricycle manufacturing or assembly or something like that somewhere in the north, because you know the north, they love their bicycles so much and they love their tricycles so much. So it's a start, but we need to
right. Yeah. So I guess this would be your concluding remark then, or if there is any.
Yes, it's part of it. I'll say that in order to, I believe this platform is to help us make an informed decision with what we are going to do on December 7th. My colleague, Mr. Lord, and myself have been interrogating, if I should say, the two manifestos with respect to industry. What I'll say is that they can look at both industry, both manifestos. One has started and sort of, in a lot of ways, have shown what they want to do going forward. They have highlighted what they've been able to do so far. So let's see if given the mandate, what they will tend to do in the next 4 years, how they are going to push the industry forward. And as I say, once we are able to do this well with what they put in there in their manifesto, I believe that Ghana will really be rubbing shoulders with the advanced countries.
All right. Thank you very much, Engineer Harriet Aqua and Mr. Lord Eduse. I think it's been very, very much interesting, I would say. And so maybe just to summarize, which we are all passionate about, I think that if we really want to move Ghana forward, as has been discussed by our two panelists here, indeed the promises that are in these two political party manifestos, they look promising, but we need to do more as a country if we want to compete with the world at large. That we cannot still be at where we are, still focusing on the agricultural industry, whilst people are, into heavy manufacturing, as Lord has explained. And so if you put Lord and Engineer Harriet together, what we are saying is that we need to, and to quote what Lord said, we need to aggressively tap local capital if we would want to industrialize our economy. And we also need to support made in Ghana goods, not only the basic made in Ghana goods, but also things like cars, as has been said here. And we think that if we do that, we'll be able to move Ghana forward. I think we can do it, and it shouldn't take us more than 10 years to be able to have an industrialized Ghana. How nice will it be, as Engineer said, if you would move to South Africa or Nigeria and find that they are driving a made in Ghana car? You would be so proud. We hope that our politicians are listening and would be able to, move Ghana to where it deserves as a country. Thank you very much. This has been SEPSA Talk. And thank you very much, Engineer Harriet Aqua. Thank you very much, Mr. Lord Eduse. It's been very interesting. It's a pity that we have to end here. Thank you, fellow Sepsarians, for following. And I am Evans Apia Kisi. Catch you again next week. Bye-bye.